G'day guys, how you going? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Sean and today we're taking a look at this build that I put together for 1,500 Aussie dollars, and I personally think it's probably one of the best ways to spend 1,500 bucks if you're looking at building a decent gaming PC in 2022. I know that there are a lot of new, GPUs and CPUs on the horizon from Intel, AMD and NVIDIA, but I think buying right now gives you an opportunity to buy some decent hardware at really good prices. There's a lot of sales going on at the moment. As well as that, you'll get some good paths if you want to upgrade to something in the future. So today we'll take you through the build, some benchmarks in games like Doom, Call of Duty, Apex Legends and Fortnite at multiple resolutions, so 1080p, 1440p and 4K. And if you guys enjoyed the content, don't forget to chuck it a like, get subscribed, and maybe leave me a comment down below on what sort of budget you want to see for the next PC build. So thanks again for watching this video guys, and let's begin. Alrighty, so in terms of the PC build, let's go through some of the parts that I used and the prices. And everything for me was sourced from a local company called ScorpTech in Sydney, Australia. Now, you guys can obviously shop around. You don't have to buy from ScorpTech. I don't work with those guys. This wasn't a sponsored build or anything like that. This is all parts that I paid for out of my own pocket. So the last build, if you guys haven't seen it, we did a AMD based system with a AMD Ryzen. I think it was a 5500 CPU and 6600 Radeon GPU. But this time around, we've actually got a bit more money to play with. So we've gone ahead and chosen a latest 12th gen Intel build. So we've got an Intel i5-12600. We haven't gone the K variant or anything like that. And the reason why I chose the Intel i5-12600 is because you get the built-in HD graphics, which you can use for streaming, or you can use as an encoder if you want to use it for something like Adobe Premiere or maybe OBS Studio if you are into streaming or recording. And on top of that, it also comes with a CPU cooler in the box, so you don't have to go out and buy a AIO or a tower cooler if you just want to go ahead and save a bit more money and put it towards other components in the build. Now for the graphic card, this time around we've gone with NVIDIA. It's an RTX 3060, believe it or not. This is a version from EVGA that only requires one 8-pin connector. It has two fans, really small compact little card. It's probably one of the cheaper RTX 3060s that are out there, but you're still getting a 3060 nonetheless. So you've got the latest NVENC encoder if you want to use it for gaming, streaming, recording, all that kind of stuff. You've got the latest version of DLSS. It's got 3 DP outputs and 1 HDMI output as well. So depending on your monitor or how many monitors you have, this card is going to be able to keep up and do pretty much everything that the bigger, more expensive cards can do, but maybe just at a little bit lower frame rate. So a really, really good graphic card. And the case, it's actually inside of this Cougar Mg140. And the reason why I picked this case is I think it looks quite nice. You've got two fans that are ARGB in the front as intakes through this mesh panel. It comes with also one as a exhaust at the back, but this case will give you room if you want to go ahead and jump from a 3060 to a 3070 or 3080 or whatever it might be in the future, and it still gives you plenty of ventilation and cooling for a bigger, more powerful graphic card. So that's why I chose this case. I think it's a really nice looking case and from a brand that I probably wouldn't have necessarily gone towards, but this was just an absolute steal considering that it comes with 3 fans pre-included and some tempered glass panels, which I've taken off for the video. As you can see. Now for the motherboard, it's an ASRock B660M Pro RS or something from ASRock. Main thing is it's a 660 chipset, so you're getting the latest PCIe Gen version, the latest NVMe M.2 version in there as well, it can support it. But I picked this board because it has the 4 RAM slots. So at the moment we're only using 2. We've got 16 gigabytes of DDR4 memory at 3200 mega transfers from Kingston. This is their Kingston Fury ARGB RAM, so you can go ahead and customize the colors on the RAM if you want to do that as well. And I think the fact that you can add some more RAM later on down the track is a really nice feature and something that you should probably be looking at when you're spending around about $1,500, because you don't want to have to sort of change out the whole build just to add in some more RAM. Now for the storage side of things, we've gone with a 1TB NVMe drive from Crucial. It's a Gen 3 drive which will do around about 2 GB per second on the reads and the writes, as you'll see in some of the benchmarks, but it is going to be plenty if you want to go ahead and install Warzone, have a bunch of other games from your Steam library there, and maybe even have some extra space if you want to do video editing or photo editing. And this motherboard has 2 M.2 slots, so when you're ready and you need to add more storage to the computer, you can do that quite easily by just adding in another M.2 drive, which is really, really convenient. For the power supply, which is the last part of the build, this power supply is a 700 watt SilverStone power supply. It's not 80 plus bronze, silver, gold, or anything like that. It's just 80 plus. So you're going to get about 620 watts out of this unit. And at load at the moment, we're only using around about 200 to 250 watts, at peak load. So the reason why we've gone with this sort of overkill 700 watt power supply is, again, if we want to add in a bigger graphic card or a more powerful CPU later on down the track, the cables are already there, the power supply is already there, and it's capable, and we don't have to change anything. So that's why we've gone with the 700 watt power supply from SilverStone. The only thing that I sort of added in at my own out-of-pocket expense, and it's not part of the budget, is these custom braided cables that I picked up on eBay. Believe it or not, a set of these only costs about $30, and you can get them in, pink, white, orange, blue, a bunch of different colors. But I think for the person who will be buying this PC, because I am going to sell it on Facebook Marketplace, I think just adding in some custom braided, nice looking cables to the build just makes it look a little bit more expensive and a little bit more premium, and I think it just ties in the whole build a little bit better than the cables that come on the SilverStone power supply, which were those ugly spaghetti cables that we all probably hate. So that's all of the parts. So now let's jump into some of those gaming benchmarks and we'll see how it performs, and then we'll also jump into some synthetic benchmarks with things like Crystal Disk Mark, so we can see how the SSD performance is, as well as Cinebench R23, and then also i5-12600 with the bandwidth test for the memory, because I know that you guys are probably not going to use this PC just primarily for gaming. It's probably going to get some other work thrown at it as well, and I think it's important to see how this PC performs in not just gaming but in other benchmarks as a whole. Okay, so starting with Cinebench, as you can see on the screen, we've got the information about the SSD, and with the sequential reads, we were getting over 2.4 gigabytes a second, which is awesome, and sequential writes 1.9 gigabytes roughly per second. It didn't do very well at the random 4K writes, but to be honest, that's a bit of a niche test, and most of the workloads that you're going to be doing, it's not going to necessarily lean on that too much. Moving on to Cinebench, you can see here we've got around about 13,200 points on the multi-core and a single core score of around about 1700 points. Maximum power draw when I was running this test was about 91 watts, and the maximum temperature got up to 97 degrees, but I didn't have the fans running at 100% either. i5-12600, just to benchmark the memory from Kingston. So the reads, writes, copy, and latency, you can see there on the screen, performs very, very well, and definitely make sure you turn on the XMP profile in the BIOS if you do get this memory. Now, jumping into some games. First of all, we've got CSGO, 1080p, 1440p, 4K. This game and this combination of hardware, it just performs really well though, especially at 1080p and 1440p. So if you've got a 240Hz monitor, you're going to be able to play those games no problem. Apex Legends, similar story at 1080p, over 144 frames a second if you've got a 144Hz monitor. 1440p though, still averaging over 100, and 4K almost can be played at almost 60 frames a second. Warzone, this is without DLSS, this is just normal settings. 1080p and 1440p, very, very respectable average frame rates. 4K even, not too bad. And if you turn on DLSS, you can get a bit more performance out of the GPU. GTA, 1080p, 1440p, and 4K, all very, very playable, especially the 1080p and 1440p. I think that's what this card is really rated for, and it just absolutely performs so well for the money. And then moving on to the next test, which was Doom Eternal, which is a new one. But this game, even just at like high settings across 1080p, 1440p, and 4K, just absolutely crushes it. Was waiting for the CPU sometimes in 1080p and 1440p, but still very, very good. And lastly, Fortnite, as you can see here, over 200 frames at 1080p, over 140 frames at 1440, and over 60 frames at 4K, which is just nuts. Alrighty guys, so that's pretty much it for this PC build and for this video. I think personally for $1,500 you can get a PC that can literally do it all and look aesthetically really, really nice as well. If you guys have any comments, questions, feedback, maybe about the next PC build, the budget, maybe things that you want to see differently or different hardware included, please let me know. I want to hear from you guys. Thanks again for watching. If you did enjoy the content and you found it helpful, don't forget to chuck it a like, get subscribed, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.